In healthcare, leadership isn't just some fancy title on a badge. It's a life-saving function, right? Every single decision can have these massive, profound consequences. So the real question is, how do we lead when the pressure is at its absolute peak? Well, for this explainer, we're actually going to look outside the hospital walls, all the way to the battlefield, to find some proven principles we can bring right to the front lines of patient care.
So at the end of the day, the core question that every single one of us, whether you're a physician, a nurse, or an APP leader, is wrestling with is this: how do we build a real culture of excellence? And I'm not just talking about one that looks good on a chart or achieves great clinical outcomes. I mean a culture that actually supports and strengthens our teams through that relentless daily grind and through those inevitable crises we all know are just around the corner.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to lay out a framework for excellence. Then, we'll dive into what I think are the real building blocks: character and discipline. After that, we'll tackle leading through a crisis. And finally, we'll tie it all together and talk about the impact on what matters most: patient care.
So, this framework we're talking about, it actually comes from some really fascinating discussions within the Culture Coalition. This is a group that was asking a super critical question: who leads best when lives are literally on the line? And their conclusion was pretty powerful. If we want to excel in our high-stakes world of healthcare, we've got to learn from people who lead when the stakes are the absolute highest you can imagine.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Where are things like leadership, trust, and absolute precision more vital than on the battlefield? It makes sense, right? The principles that are proven under fire have these direct, really powerful applications for the work we do on the hospital floor, in the OR, and right there at the patient's bedside.
So we're really drawing from the wisdom of two legendary military leaders here. We've got Admiral William McRaven, who wrote Conquering Crisis, and General Stanley McChrystal, who literally wrote the book on this subject, and it's simply called On Character. Okay, so let's start with the absolute bedrock. I mean, before we talk about any strategy, any technique, any new initiative, we have to talk about character. Why? Because when the pressure really mounts, when things go sideways, it's the only thing that's going to hold.
Just take a second and really absorb the power of this statement from General McChrystal. He's arguing that beyond our titles, our skills, our list of successes, character is the only metric that truly matters in the end. That is the true measure of a leader.
Okay, so character sounds great, but what does that even mean? How do we define it? Well, McChrystal gives us this incredibly powerful, super practical formula. This isn't some vague, fuzzy concept. It's a straight-up equation. Character equals your convictions multiplied by your discipline. And that multiplication part is absolutely crucial. Think about it. If either one of those is zero, your character as a leader is zero, period.
All right, let's break that down. First up, convictions. These are your deeply held beliefs, your core values. This is the what you actually believe in. For us in healthcare, that's probably an unwavering belief in patient safety, right? Or in true team collaboration, or just in compassionate care. These are the mainsprings, the principles that should be driving every single thing you do.
But here's the catch. Having great convictions isn't enough. Not even close. Discipline is the other half of the equation. It's the engine. This is the how. It's the will to consistently do what you believe is right. It's that daily, often difficult choice to act on your beliefs, even when it's hard, even when you're exhausted, and maybe most importantly, even when you think no one is watching.
And that brings us right to discipline in practice. I mean, how do we take this big idea of character and actually apply it? Well, this is where we get to translate those lessons from the battlefield directly to the bedside. We're going to connect this abstract idea of discipline to the real concrete stuff we do every single day.
And this quote from Admiral McRaven, man, it just perfectly bridges that gap. If you can't do the little things right, you'll never be able to do the big things right. It's such a simple but profound truth, isn't it? The real pursuit of excellence, it's not found in some grand, heroic gesture. It's forged in the relentless day-in, day-out mastery of the small, fundamental tasks.
So you've probably heard of McRaven's famous make your bed philosophy. And here's the secret. It's not really about the bed. It's about momentum. It's about accomplishing that first task of the day. It gives you a small win, a little hit of pride, and it encourages you to do another task and another. It reinforces that the little things matter. And in the absolute chaos of a hospital, that one simple act of creating order can be a powerful anchor for your entire day.
And the parallel for us in healthcare is so direct and so powerful. Okay, for a Navy SEAL, it's making the bed to perfection. What is it for us? It's completing that safety checklist every single time. It's that unwavering commitment to proper hand hygiene. It's finishing clear, precise documentation, even when you're at the end of a brutal 12-hour shift. These are our make-the-bed moments.
So here's the crucial takeaway, right? You simply cannot expect your team to perform flawlessly during a code blue or a super complex surgery if the daily culture doesn't value precision in those seemingly small, everyday tasks. Excellence in the big, life-saving moments is built on a foundation of discipline in all those little things. All right, so we've talked about the discipline of routine. Now, let's shift gears and talk about the challenge of the unexpected. Because let's be honest, healthcare is an environment of constant potential crisis, and your leadership is never, ever more vital than it is in those high-stakes moments.
And check this out, Admiral McRaven's definition of a crisis. I mean, this is basically a perfect description of a random Tuesday in any hospital. An unforeseen and unplanned event? Yep. Tight resource constraints? Always. High stakes and public scrutiny? For sure. And people's lives on the line? Well, that is the very definition of our job.
Look, when a real crisis hits, you don't have time to sit down and invent a plan. You need a framework you can fall back on, something almost instinctual. And McRaven gives us this super clear, actionable sequence. Assess the situation, report with precision, contain the threat, shape the momentum, and manage the recovery. Think of it like a mental checklist you can just run through when the pressure is on.
So, let's apply this to something we all know. A code blue. A code blue is this framework in action. First, you assess the vitals. Then you report clearly to the team. Patient is unresponsive, no pulse, starting compressions. You work to contain the immediate threat, the cardiac arrest. You shape the response by giving clear orders for meds and interventions. And then, hopefully, you get to manage the patient's recovery once you get a pulse back. See? It's a perfect fit.
And inside that crisis response framework, McRaven is absolutely emphatic about one thing. You have to have radical transparency. He says that delaying the truth in a crisis only deepens the damage. It doesn't matter if it's a clinical crisis or some administrative nightmare, hiding the truth or even just sugarcoating it is a catastrophic mistake. It just destroys trust and makes the problem 1,000 times worse.
Okay, so let's bring this all together now. The big so what? Why does all this stuff, a leader's character, their discipline, their crisis management skills, why does it matter so much? Well, because it directly shapes the actual environment where our teams are trying to care for patients. It's pretty simple, really. When you, as a leader, show up with character, your team trusts you. It's unbreakable. When you model that discipline in the little details, you reduce preventable medical errors. When you manage a crisis with clarity and honesty, you create psychological safety, that feeling where team members feel safe enough to speak up. And all of that, it combines to drive superior patient outcomes and builds a real, lasting culture of accountability.
And ultimately, it really just comes down to this powerful quote from General McChrystal. It's on you. It's your responsibility. The culture on your unit, in your department, in your OR, it doesn't just magically happen. As the leader, you are the one who sets the tone. Your actions, your discipline, your character, that's the metronome that your entire team calibrates to.
So, as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a question to really think about. Your leadership absolutely sets the tone. We've seen how these small, disciplined acts build the foundation for excellence. So, thinking about your specific role and your team, what is that one make-your-bed task, that small, fundamental detail that you will commit to mastering starting tomorrow?